Hi there, I'm Anna Aspinus and I want to share the photo-inspired process with you. Last year I wrote comprehensive posts about using the photo-inspired product line, which can all now be found under the photo-inspired heading of the quick reference tutorial guide on the AA blog. This year I thought it might be fun and perhaps a little bit more helpful to demonstrate the techniques and processes via video tutorials. I'm using PhotoShop Elements 11, but you can use a similar version of Elements or the full version of Photoshop to yield similar results. I want to kick off this series of tutorials with a demonstration of my basic approach to working with the photo-inspired double-page templates. These are the templates that I use to create my weekly documentation pages. The intent is to keep the instructions short and sweet with a focus on the basic techniques. To create these pages, I use an easy 5-step process. Create a double page layout. First of all, ensure you have your workspace set up to support floating windows. This makes it much easier for you to work and move between multiple open files. Go to Edit, Preferences, General, and ensure the Allow Floating Documents in Expert Mode box is checked, and then click OK. Create a new 24 by 12 inch layout at 300 dpi. Go to File, New, Blank File, select inches as your measurement, and then enter 24 for the width, type in 12 for the height, and 300 for your resolution, then click OK. Divide the blank layout into two halves by selecting the Move tool from the Tools panel. Click on the left margin of the layout and with the left mouse button depressed, drag towards the center of the canvas, positioning the guideline at the 12-inch mark. If you don't see your rulers, go to View and ensure that the Rulers option is checked. Locate and open the two templates that make up a photo-inspired double-page spread. Go to File, Open, navigate to where your templates are saved, click on the first template, hold down the Control key and click on the second template, and then click Open to open both templates into your window. Click on the first template to select, in this case, template 45A. Go to your Layers panel, click on the background layer, hold down the Shift button on your keyboard, scroll up the Layers panel, and then click on the last layer to select all the layers in the template. Then you can move the template to the side and then drag all of those layers onto the left side of your layout, and then repeat the same process with the second template. Click on the template to select it, select the background layer, scroll up the Layers panel, hold down the Shift key and then click on the last layer to select all the layers, and then move those layers onto the new layout and move into position so that you have a double page spread that includes both the templates. You can now go ahead and close out those individual templates and start populating your layout. Step 2 is to add photos in ArtsyKardz. I pre-organize photos into a separate folder and begin clipping the images to the masks in the template. ArtsyKardz are then added to the masks in exactly the same fashion, filling any remaining masks in the template. Clipping photos in ArtsyKardz enables the photo to adopt the shape or form of the underlying mask and is achieved using the clipping mask function in Photoshop and Elements. Select the Move tool from the Tools panel and ensure that the Auto Select Layer option at the bottom of the screen is checked. This enables you to select a specific layer by clicking on the layout as opposed to searching for it in the Layers panel. Click on the first mask you would like to work with. Notice the bounding box denoting its selection. Activate your Open Photos folder. Select the image that you would like to use and then drag it into your workspace. From here, you can move the image directly on top of the mask that you just selected. Resize the image as desired by clicking on the corners of the bounding box and dragging them inwards. And when you're happy with the size, you can accept the transformation and clip the image to the mask. Go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask, and you can see that the image conforms to the underlying mask. You can also click Ctrl and G. Close the original image and then repeat this process until you have clipped photos and ArtsyKardz to all of the masks in the template. Step 3. Add the basics. After you've finished clipping the photos and the ArtsyKardz to the masks in the template, you should end up with a layout that looks like this. Notice in the Layers panel you can see that we have the various photos and ArtsyKardz clipped to the masks. Notice also that I didn't use all of the pre-selected photos, and I moved the text box to enable the template to better accommodate my images. I also clipped the JPEG versions of the ArtsyKardz to the masks and only needed to enlarge one of them in order to accommodate the size of that particular frame. The next step is to add what I call the basics, which includes the background, the date strip, and elements that denote the week or number of the year for the layout. So for the background, I want to select a color that's in contrast to the ArtsyKardz that I have clipped to my masks, and in this particular layout they're predominantly lighter colored, so therefore I would choose a darker background. If the ArtsyKardz were vibrantly colored or much brighter, I would lean towards a much lighter background. So in this case I'm going to use the papers from ArtPlay Palette Sparkle. I'm going to go to File, Open, and select the darkest solid paper that I have in this particular collection. I'm going to double click on it, which opens it into my workspace. To move this paper onto my layout, I'm going to click on the layout. Make sure I have the Move tool selected from the Tools panel, and then go down and locate the background layer. I'm going to click on the paper and then drag the paper into position. Make sure when you're moving the paper that you click actually on the paper and not on any one of these images, because you have the auto select layer box still checked, and you'll end up moving all of these different layers around instead. So just nudge it into position, and then you can drag that layer up to the new layer icon so that you end up with two of the background layers, and then drag that up your layers panel above the second background layer and shift the layer across and move it into position. And that's how you add the background to the template. The next step is to add a date strip. Go to File, Open, and I'm going to use the Days to Months number 2. Double click on that folder, and you have various options inside for using the date strip. So you can go to Distressed, for example, and if you click on this icon at the top, it gives you the option to view those strips in list format, and then I can go ahead and select the January Distressed label, and again move that onto my canvas. like so, and you can nudge it across using the arrow buttons on your keyboard and close that out, and the paper too. Load the included brush set by clicking on the paintbrush tool in the tools panel, going down to the brush icon, click on the black arrow, go up to the top, very small downward facing arrow, and click down to load brushes, and then navigate to the days to month number 2 bonus brush set and double click to load into your palette. Select the brush of your choice. I like to use this one at the bottom here, circle 9. Select that. Create a new layer above your date strip layer by clicking on the new layer icon. You can see that the new layer appears above the date strip. Go over to your color picker and select a color of your choice. I often like to use red. Click OK, and then you can stamp the circles over the numbers to denote the days of the week. The last of the steps in my basics protocol is to add an element that denotes the number of the week for the year. To do this, you need to go to File, Open, and locate the product that you're going to be using. I'm choosing to use 52 weeks number set number 3. Select the appropriate brad by double clicking, and then make sure you have the Move tool selected from the Tools panel and move that brad into position. From here you can add a drop shadow layer style. I like to use the Anna style shadows number 1. Step 4, Embellishments. Embellishments for my photo-inspired layouts usually come from the same ArtPlay palette to keep the process easy and simple. I like to add elements with appropriate shadows, such as buttons. You can see the 3 line of buttons down the side of this frame. There's a twig with a nice drop shadow going across this triangular frame with a little birdie and a subtle snowflake. You can also see that I have added some word labels around the layout. I also like to add urban stitches, which come in brush format. I stamp them in black on new layers, and you can see that I have one on each page. Notice the contrast in the horizontal and vertical orientation, which adds visual interest. I use a variety of frames, such as the fine edge frames, which I stamp on new layers above photos. You can see I've stamped one in black over the sunset photo, and then over on the opposing page I've stamped a fine edge frame in white. I also like to use plastic pockets, and I simply open those as we did with the brad and position them over the image. This particular pocket sits quite nicely over this quad arrangement of masks. I like to create an artsy mat for my images by stamping paint brushes from Artsy Paint, Different Strokes, and ArtPlay palettes to new layers between the background layers and the clipped images. You can see the paint peeking out from behind the cluster of photos. And in this particular layout, the frames have got quite wide edges, and so I've taken the opportunity to clip transfers from the same ArtPlay palette to those frames to provide visual interest. This is done in the same manner shown previously as clipping images to the template masks. Step 5, the words. The final step in creating my photo-inspired layout is to add the words. That's the title and the stories that make the page become a memory-keeping page. To do this, I add word art from brush sets and I stamp them on new layers in coordinating colors. You can see I've added this Shine Bright in a dark brown, and Do Epic Stuff from another set on another layer on the opposing page. Notice the mirror action that happens between the two pages. And then to add my text, there are already text boxes built into the template. You can move these around the page. As I have done, I tend to move them as I'm adding my photos and ArtsyKardz and elements, etc. Go ahead and click on the type tool in the tools panel and click on one of the text boxes to activate it. You can then select the text in the text box by clicking on the beginning of the text box, holding down that left mouse button. You have to be careful you don't actually get the handles of the bounding box, and drag downwards, and once you've selected all the text you can release that left mouse button and then simply just start typing your text, and then once you're happy with that you can accept the transformation or cancel. For this particular text box, I wanted the text to follow the line of the diagonal in the triangle, and so I clicked on the text box. I had to resize the text box by pulling on these handles, and if you click on the handles that are intersecting the lines, then they will kind of stretch or make the text box taller. You can see that in order to do this you have to wait for that double ended arrow to appear. The arced arrow will actually rotate the text box, and this double-ended one will allow you to stretch it and move it in that respect. If you click on the corner ones and look for that diagonal double-ended arrow, you can enlarge the text box or make it smaller. And I simply resized the text box, and then I did a carriage return as I got down to this diagonal arrow to make sure that the text kind of follows in line with that diagonal of the mask. If you have any questions about my 5-step process to creating photo-inspired layouts, please do not hesitate to contact me at anna_aspinas@yahoo.com, and I'll be back soon.